You needn't think I'm crazy, Elliot. I know I'm more nervous than I was when you saw me last year, but you needn't hold a clinic over it. There's plenty of reason, God knows. I fancy I'm lucky to be sane at all. Art can reflect great beauty or joy, but it can also reflect great terror. Whether it's grotesque paintings or death metal lyrics, many people often wonder what inspired these humans to create such horrific works of art. The protagonist of this tale follows one of the most talented and disturbed painters in all of Boston and discovers the sickening truth behind his inspirations in H.P. Lovecraft's Pickman's Model. Well, if you must hear it, and I don't know why you shouldn't, maybe you ought to, for you kept writing me like a grieved parent when you heard I'd begun to keep away from Pickman. No, I don't know what's become of him, and I don't like to guess. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't drop Pickman for silly reasons. Morbid art doesn't shock me. And when a man has the genius that Pickman had, I feel it an honor to know him, no matter what direction his work takes. Because it takes profound insight into nature to turn out stuff like Pickman's. Only a real artist can make such a thing really scare or ring true. Pickman had it as no other man ever had before. Or I hope to heaven, ever will again. But keep in mind, I didn't drop Pickman for anything like this. On the contrary, my admiration for him kept growing. My hero worship, coupled with the fact that people were generally having less and less to do with him, made him get very confidential with me. And one evening, he hinted that if I were fairly closed-mouthed and none too squeamish, he might show me something rather unusual. Not long after this, Pickman revealed a great door that looked damnably wormy. Unlocking it, he ushered me inside and told me to make myself at home. Now, Elliot, I will confess that what I saw on the walls of that room gave me a bad turn. They were his pictures. There's no use in my trying to tell you what they were like, because the blasphemous horror and the unbelievable loathsomeness was far beyond description. I began to analyze some of the points in my sickening loathing. In the first place, these things repelled because of the utter inhumanity and the callous cruelty they showed in Pickman. The fellow must have been a relentless enemy of all mankind to take such glee in the torture of brain and flesh. In the second place, these things terrified me because of their very greatness. Their art was the art that convinced. When we saw the pictures, we saw the demons themselves, and we were afraid of them. And the queer part was that Pickman got none of his power from the use of selectiveness or bizarre. Nothing was blurred or distorted. The outlines, they were sharp and lifelike, and the details were almost painfully defined. It was no mere artist's interpretation that we saw on that canvas. It was pandemonium itself. Well, that was it, by heaven. The man wasn't a fantasist or romanticist at all. But he coldly and sardonically reflected some well-established horror world, which he saw fully, brilliantly, squarely, and unfalteringly. No matter what the source of his disturbing art, one thing was plain. Pickman was in every sense, in conception and in execution, a thorough, painstaking, and almost scientific realist. My host was now leading me down the cellar to his actual studio. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, he turned a flashlight and revealed a well. I noticed idly that a heavy disc of wood formed the apparent cover, and then turned to follow him. A large camera on the table excited my notice, and Pickman explained that he often used it in taking scenes for backgrounds. And then Pickman unveiled a huge canvas, and I could not for my life keep back a loud scream. It echoed and echoed throughout the dim vaultings of that ancient cellar, and I had to choke back a flood of reaction, which threatened to burst In its bony claws, a thing that had once been a man, gnawing on the head as a child nibbles on a stick of candy. But damn it all, Elliot, it wasn't even the fiendish subject that made it such an immortal fountainhead of all panic. It was the technique, Elliot. It was the cursed, the unbelievable technique. As I am a living being, I never elsewhere saw the actual breath of life so fused into canvas. The monster was there! It gnawed and glared and gnawed and glared! And I knew that only a suspension of nature's laws could ever let a man paint a thing like that without some sort of model. And pinned with a thumbtack to a vacant part of the canvas was a piece of paper now badly curled up. Probably a photograph from which Pickman meant to paint a background. I reached out to uncurl it, when suddenly I saw Pickman start as if shot. He motioned me to silence and drew a revolver, then stepped out into the main cellar and closed the door behind him. I fancied I heard a series of bleats in a direction I couldn't determine. After that followed a dull, grating noise, a shouted gibberish from Pickman, and the deafening discharge of all 6 chambers of the revolver. A muffled squawk and a thud. Pickman returned, holding his smoking weapon, cursing the bloated rats that infested that ancient well. Well, Elliot, I never spoke to him again. Why did I drop him? It was something I found in my coat the next morning. You remember that paper tacked to that awful canvas? That paper was the reason I dropped Pickman. Now, don't ask me to explain or even conjecture about what it was. And don't ask me either what lay behind that scrambling Pickman who was so keen to pass off as rats. You know how damned lifelike Pickman's paintings were? How we all wondered where he got those faces? That paper wasn't a photograph of any background after all. What it showed was merely the monstrous being he was painting on that awful canvas. And in its background was merely the wall of the cellar studio in minute detail. But by God, Ellie, it was a photograph from life.